felt like my first real Scream movie in the theater. It's kind of like how everyone has their Batman, everyone has their Spider-Man. This is like that way to bring that in and, continue on with a new group, but still pay homage to the original. So I really loved this one. Kristen here, and I am joined by Chris Parker of 3C Films to rank all 6 Scream movies from worst to best. Chris, thank you for joining me.
Of course. Yeah. Happy and excited too.
I gotta say, even though we're ranking from worst to best, I feel like, I don't know if you agree, I don't think that there really is a worst. I feel like maybe it's least favorite to most favorite. I kind of like them all.
I think Scream is one of those rare franchises where like consistently the quality has been up there and there's just other sequels that are better than others.
Scream and Chucky are franchises for me that like I just feel like they get more bold, more creative, more fun. Like I just love every one as it continues on. Like it's incredible that like, you could be going into a Scream 6 in 2023 and like Chucky season 2 of a TV show and it's still like really good after like decades. It's like how are they doing that? Chris, I want to start with you. Just tell us a little bit about your like your Scream experience. Like how did you get into the franchise?
It's funny because I first watched Scary Movie. That was like the parody movie Scary Movie. And as a kid, I thought that was a real horror movie. Like there was actual things in there that like creeped me out, or obviously other things I didn't understand, or that it was just trying to be funny. But I thought watching that first would ruin my love for Scream, because then I later found out like, oh, well, that movie was parodying Scream. So then like a couple years later, I'm like 7 or 8, I finally decided to check out Scream, and then it was just like one after another other. I had to watch them, and I just remember loving them. And then when like 2011 came and there was another Scream movie coming out, I remember that was like one of the first movies I was obsessed with on the internet. That thing where you go to the internet and Google Scream 4 updates, hit recent, and try to look up all set photos and articles. So I have a lot of fun memories, and it's just cool to know that they're still kicking today.
It's funny because I feel like Scream 4 is actually the true first Scream movie I ever watched, but I wasn't really like, all up in there. And then I had seen some of like the MTV series. And then when Scream 5 came out, for me, that was like my first like real, like going to the theater and like experiencing the whole thing. I feel like that's honestly a testament to how a franchise can continue and bring a new generation in. Because that made me now for the 6th one, go all the way back to the beginning and watch it all. And like, it was so good that I was like, we gotta talk about it. We gotta rank these movies. We gotta break it down. Definitely. Let's get into our ranking. Make sure to leave a comment and let me know how you rank these movies. Getting into our last place in number 6, we went with Scream 3. We actually had very, I think, similar.
Pretty
about our order.
Just the middle part. Yeah.
So we'll go through like my list, but then for all the ones that you have different opinions, we can clarify where you rank them. But we both put Scream 3 in last place. So tell me your thoughts there.
Again, I don't think there is a bad Scream movie. There was just, I think Scream 3 I've seen a lot of people call it R-rated Scooby-Doo, and I can kind of get that because there's like a silly nature to it. You have the gang returning, the trio and whatnot. The Hollywood setting is pretty cool. To me, it was a weak Ghostface. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Roman reveal, especially since he had like no interaction with Sydney up until the finale. And I was like, well, of course she's surprised. She's never seen this man in her life. But other than that, there's like things about it that have like grown over the years in commentary. That whole subplot about, executives taking advantage of actresses and tying it back to Sydney's mom, I thought was like something really not even done at the time, and even worse because it's connected to Harvey Weinstein. He was a producer on that movie and they got made, so it was almost kind of like calling him out before anyone really realized it. So there are aspects of Scream 3 I really like. To me, it's just the silly nature and goofiness of it.
I actually had a hard time like ranking this one because I kind of wanted to put it higher because I do enjoy goofy types of projects like that, where it's like, the campiness of it. I was like, oh, I really like the campiness.
There we go.
And, I even thought it was very interesting that there's sort of parallels to Sam a little bit in this movie, where Sydney is also having visions of her mom, while Sam in the newer ones is having visions of her dad. And surprisingly, I actually really like the Roman reveal.
Oh, hey, there's a lot of Roman fans out there, so you're not alone.
I liked that idea that like it has that familial connection where it's like, actually, you didn't know anything about your mom, and she has all these secrets, including, a hidden brother. Like, I actually enjoyed that. And I really loved seeing Sydney walking through the sets of childhood.
Great.
Like, that was crazy. So there's nothing I didn't really not like about the movie. It's just, there's so many other elements of other ones that I was like, oh yeah, I do like that a little bit more. So I had such a hard time ranking these, but I think this was maybe one of my least favorite openings I liked that they like showed us the history of like where everyone was now, and that like we saw it from like a character who'd been in
Yeah.
the franchise's perspective with Cotton. But I didn't really like Cotton that much as like a person, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I don't mind the opening, but I get you. It's one of the more like simple or cut dry ones. I guess I kind of like that little small sequence where they have the like the rock music playing and then like caught and the killers walk in. And I don't know. I think that's such a cool little scene.
Next up, in fifth place, we went with Scream 2. I loved this opening. This is one of my favorite openings. Going to the
Mhm.
movies, talking about like white women in horror, the African American experience in horror, and them just being in front of all these people at the movies and them thinking it's a publicity stunt when they're being killed off. Like, I just thought that showed like the rabidness of fandom. You had great cameos, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I actually really liked the cameraman Joel in this and how, he was kind of like, I've seen these types of movies and I'm not going to be a victim to that. As a black man, I'm not going to be the one that's killed off. And, the idea that like they're duplicating the Woodsboro murders through the different names of the people. I think for me, the thing that I found the weakest was the killer reveal, because even though I like Mrs. Loomis, I thought Mickey was gone for like majority of
Yeah,
the
that
movie.
is true. Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, oh man, this guy's coming out of nowhere. So that for me was one of like the weaker reveals, really Mickey more than anybody else.
For me, Scream 2 isn't that far off. To me, I have it the next one up. I have a different one in this place. But like touching upon it right now, I agree. That opening, fantastic. I love the movie theater setting. Fans going crazy for like the first entry of a movie they don't even know is good or not. And the commentary on black actors in there and whatnot. Joel, I do agree that was cool. And like the stakes were higher, that's where they killed off Randy, one of my favorite characters in the series. And that's such a sad, unexpected death, broad daylight in a van. People, it's like I didn't see it coming. When it came to the reveals, I have a soft spot for Mickey. I agree he maybe wasn't in it that much, but there's like that one scene where he's trying to sway Sydney into like thinking her boyfriend is a killer. He's all like, "Wow, how did he get out of there so quickly?" And whatnot. And over years, I've gotten to realize Mickey's kind of like another Stu with that exaggerated craziness. But I thought he did a great performance, and I loved his motive of like, I'm gonna blame the movies. Like I want to get caught, I want the attention and whatnot. The Mrs. Loomis one, I've grown to appreciate it more over time, but as a kid, I hated that reveal. I thought it was so dumb, especially with like the back story of like, oh, well, she had plastic surgery and lost weight. That's why we didn't recognize her. And I was like, that is so soap opera-y or so like, I don't know, out there for me. But over time, I've really liked it, and especially since I've learned like it's paid homage to Mrs. Voorhees, Jason's mom from the Friday 13th series. I was like, well, that is kind of cool. And a mother's love, and even how she was like, she was gonna turn in her partner. She like never believed his mother. Like he was kind of crazy. I'm not doing that. Mine's is just good old fashioned revenge. And so
Yeah.
there is a lot to love. So that's why I'm gonna place it higher. For me, the next one, the one I had second to bottom was Scream 5.
So we'll get into that one shortly. I agree with what you're saying about the Mrs. Loomis. Like, I like when there's a history, And
Yeah.
so, like, even though she had never really been seen before, the fact that it like goes back to Billy and like,
Mhm.
I mean, her whole life was ruined because of
Yeah.
Maureen Prescott. She lost her son. She lost her husband. Like, it does. I like can get behind what she's serving up. I also did like that commentary on people wanting to be in the spotlight, which I feel like is something that has been a drumbeat throughout a lot of the movies,
Yeah.
like Cotton Weary being like, well,
Yeah.
I might let you die if you don't go on this TV show with
Yeah,
me.
Diane Sawyer.
Yeah, let's go on Diane Sawyer. Let's get into our fourth place pick. We went with Scream 6. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of this opening.
Really?
What I didn't love was the Samara Weaving part, which I was surprised by because I
Okay.
really like Samara Weaving.
Yeah.
But I loved the reveal of seeing a ghost face early. I was
Yeah.
like, that shook me. Like, I didn't hate it, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's definitely not in my like top 3 openings. But I really loved so much of what they did around Sam's story. People falling into these conspiracy theories, believing everything they hear on the internet about her being, Billy Loomis's daughter and sort of maybe liking the feeling of hurting people, maybe people that have hurt you,
Yeah.
protecting those people that you love by hurting others. I think that was really interesting. I thought there was really great parallels to like the first 2 movies in this in certain cases, like Sydney and Sam both wearing the ghost face masks to kill the bad guys and like doing the voice to them back. Like I loved it because there's these like this sort of parallel between the characters, right? Of like, one scene as the victim, one scene as the villain, one's kind of famous, one's becoming infamous, even though they're both like the final girls. And so
Yeah.
I loved those. And I think the Easter eggs were really cool. I felt like I didn't know who was going to end up being the killer at the end of this. Like they kept subverting expectations, you know, like I was like, who's going to survive this? I was surprised by who survived. And I think it was one of those where like you think more people are going to be killed off than they really are. I loved that they brought back, you know, Gail and they brought back Kirby. I didn't mind that Sydney wasn't there.
I love Sydney, but I also think she wasn't needed here.
Yeah, I agree. Like they open it if she ever wants to come back, but I didn't think that it took away. Overall, I had a lot of fun with it, and I just like the parallels of how they're, you know, comparing the first 4 movies to this next chapter.
Yeah. So you had Scream 6 at the bottom 3. I have Scream 6 a little higher. I love the opening. I thought it like as far as subverting expectations and being different, I thought it did a good job there. You can pinpoint the exact moment where a regular Scream movie would have cut to the title card. Whenever Samara Weaving finally gets that final slash in the alley, there's like a big Ghostface knife, and that's always where Ghostface where that attack would lead into the title card. And when it didn't, I just remember like, oh, where's the title? I thought that was gonna be it, and if that's where it ended, I was like, okay, it's cute, generic college professor being tricked into an alley. It gets you a vibe of the New York City,
That's
whatever.
where for me it was like it's cute, generic. I liked the rest, but you know,
Yeah, like that beginning was just cute, generic, good night. It gives you an idea of like how you can kill someone publicly in New York and probably get away with it because the alleys and whatnot. Like, okay, that was a fine one, but then you know he gets down, staring at the victim, mask reveal, and then we just see him put costume away, blend in with the city, walk past Tara, and you're like looking at a Scream movie so differently. Now you have the perspective that's like, oh my god, this guy's the killer for the movie, or this guy's gonna be Ghostface, and he's having his casual interaction with the main character, like acting all friendly and whatnot. It was just kind of cool to see behind the lens, and then you know he gets to his place and all and everything ensues. I thought the suspense maybe could have handled a little bit better within the apartment, you know, where he's like, "Are we using this Ghostface voice again? Come on, whatnot." I like seeing that he was like a fan and had a whole closet of masks and whatnot. But either way, I thought that was cool, and a lot of what Scream 6 did to me that like really made it stand out is that it was different, it was unique, you know, like Ghostface with the shotgun in New York City and whatnot.
They
That's
didn't
what
really follow those same beats either, you know, like that they always do
exactly.
in the movies. It was definitely different, and some of that I loved, some of it I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I was mainly happy with it because for other reasons like you like from your ranking, you have Scream 6 lower than Scream 5. I liked Scream 5, but to me it what was holding it back. I felt like it was just too much into the formula or playing it too safe. So I really liked Scream 6 for taking those drastic measures. Now, I will say with the reveal and the finale, that's where I felt the weakest with Scream 6, and I was like, not too happy with that. It felt very familiar and repetitive to like Scream 2 and whatnot. And I think there was also some really convoluted plot points in there, like the whole detective changing his name but still being a police officer. Then you know, I'll change the name of my daughter and even fake her death. I'm like, how are you going to explain that if you got away with it? You have to hide your daughter now for the rest of your life, and you gave your son a fake name but not your daughter. Like there was just so many holes to that whole reveal to me that I was like, okay, but there were still cool moments within that finale.
Yeah, like they really kept me guessing. I was like, is it Kirby? Is it? And I loved the setting of
Yeah.
the Hall of Fame. Like that was so cool. I like that they like you thought Quinn was out of the picture.
I do think it's cool to do that, like to like have a ghost face die out like that. I just didn't buy into the fact when he said, "Oh, I switched out the bodies at the crime scene," where I'm like, but every ghost face has a plan to like continue. You know, they have a like, if I'm successful, no one will ever know it was me and my family. So I was like, if you faked her death in the crime scene around all your police officers and they took you off the case because she's dead, how are you now going to explain your daughter's alive? Like that's just the one part to me. It felt more like they were just trying to trick the audience and be like, kept you guessing, but logically in their world, that move didn't make sense to me.
Next up in third place, we went with Scream 5.
To me, it would be a switch for there. So like I'd have Scream 6 above Scream 5. Now to me, Scream 5 I thought was really enjoyable. I was skeptical because I mean this is a big step for the franchise. No Wes Craven, no Kevin Williamson writing the film. Those are like the main things I think you need for a Scream movie to at least feel like a Scream film. You know, but then you had a stellar cast. I think probably the best cast since like Screw the first Scream. And you know, Dylan Minnette, Jenna Ortega, Melissa Barrera, all those people I thought were really great. The opening I thought was also a nice version. The first time someone doesn't die in the opening, but it was like used as a motive to get the characters they needed there in Woodsboro. The way they would weave things in, I like that too. I even like the way they handled the Dewey situation. It's like it showed you they're serious. It's like just because they're legacy and we want to pay respects to some of these people, don't mean they can't die. And as much as some people hate the fact that Dewey died, I thought it was handled in a way that made sense for the franchise. This was a guy that got stabbed in every other movie and magically survived by the end. It was
Mhm.
about time he finally got his stab that didn't let him survive. And it was also such a cool scene that Ghostface, it's an honor. I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, and the motive. I some people are mixed on the Scream 5 motive. I love the motive in that one. Toxic
Yeah.
fandom and fans trying to make their own movie. Like we as creators, we see toxic fandom all the time. So
Mhm.
it wasn't that crazy to me to believe that there'd be entitled fans wanting to try and make their own movie.
I think this is my favorite opening of all time because I love that it took what they did with Drew Barrymore to the next
Mhm.
level. That twist of like she survives it all. I was like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. And I'm a big supporter of inclusion and diversity, and the fact that we're getting to focus on Black and Latino and queer characters. I love that.
Mhm.
But you also, beyond that, just have incredible actors like Jenna Ortega. Time and time again has proved that she is a scream queen, that she is like
Oh
one of the
yeah.
best actresses of our generation. And so like, oh, I loved it. And then, opening up that reveal of who Sam really is, being Billy's illegitimate daughter, connecting it back to like the legacy, the people of the past. I just thought that was so awesome. And I thought they did a good job of like you said, like bringing in the original characters. And, sometimes you got to kill them off, but in a way that's like feels kind of iconic. Like that
Yeah.
was really cool, the way that Dewey died, and the way that like, they kind of respected them even though they were killing them. They're like, yeah, it wasn't honest. Like, like
Yeah.
this is we're taking it all the way back to like Stu Macher's house 25 years like later. Like we are
That was cool.
paying homage and tribute in like a really great way. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was scary. And for me, like I said, this kind of felt like my first real Scream movie in the theater. I felt like, oh wow, I feel like part of a new generation getting into this and then going back and getting into the entire franchise later on. You know what I mean? Like this is a
Yeah.
great way to, it's kind of like how everyone has their Batman, everyone has their
Yeah.
Spider-Man. This is like that way to bring that in and, continue on with a new group, but still pay homage to the original. So I really loved this one. We're getting into our top two. Second place, we went with Scream 4. I love that we had the same two top ones because
Yes, our
I
top 2 are the same though.
yeah, I was surprised.
It was an awesome time when Scream 4 finally came out because, like, there was 11-year wait, I believe, or 10 years since the last Scream movie came out, and by that time I had already seen the first 3 movies on repeat every other year, just watching them over and over, thinking that would be it. They'd never do it again. And then the surprise, it was also the early age of the internet and whatnot, and picking up movie news and just to see they were going to make another one. I was excited. So I was like scrounging through set photos, trying to see any little details I could. And that was my first Scream movie in a theater. And I was just so cool because I'd never thought I'd see a new Scream movie in the theater.
Mhm.
And it was also the most surprised. The reveal to me was the most surprised I was since the first film. All the other reveals, you can be, okay, whatever. The motive is all right. That's cool. But this one, like, it just hit the nail on the head for me when it came to the reveal of Jill and the way they played that out. Because even the interviews, as someone who was trying to absorb all the information before watching it, they were really building like Emma Roberts to be like the new Sydney. Like she might pass the torch over and whatnot. And I was believing it that she would. And so when it happened, I was just shocked. And they also introduced you to characters you really like Kirby. I thought was a great addition. And they also did something kind of different where they stuck away from the formula. Usually, once the killer reveals himself, that's kind of like where the movie ends. They get away and whatnot. But I like how they extended it out. We see Jill almost win. We see her go through her plan of hurting herself and then trying to set her up as the big hero till we get to the hospital. I love that extension. And that's kind of the stuff I want to see going forward in the franchise. More stuff breaking the formula instead of always, killers reveal themselves, hold a couple of guns, explain why they're doing it, then of course they die.
Oh man, that was like the craziest reveal. And that's what made it so high for me. I loved that the opening was so meta. It was like a little Twilight Zone, like, and it was such a sign of the times. You had like Lucia Hale, Sinead Grimes, and like that's definitely like having them and Emma Roberts is definitely what encouraged me to watch that as like a kid.
Yeah.
Because that was like, what was on at the time. Like those are
Yep.
the people that you were watching on TV. And so it was like, and I loved the commentary on like recycling storylines and like, oh, there's no element of surprise. And it's like, actually, look at this movie. We're about to surprise you. And they even got ahead on like the live streaming idea.
That's true. Like they that might have been ridiculous when we first saw, a guy constantly with a camera looking dumb and whatnot, but he was right on the money. I mean, look, people live stream all the time, a little too much of their lives, and they're kind of ahead of the game on that. I think also even with the motive, doing dumb stuff for fame, like that's
Oh,
so ingrained to people today.
What world are you living in? I don't need friends. I need fans.
absolutely. That's why her like the reveal of Jill was one of my favorite reveals, because it's like, oh wow, like imagine growing up in this family where like your cousin is this infamous, this famous girl for all these terrible reasons, and you're like, I want that fame too. Like, I know, kind of, you believe it.
Don't you get it? This has never been about killing you. It's about becoming you.
I gotta say, as much as I know people are saying that Scream 6 is one of the bloodiest that we've seen, I
This
thought
one was
the
pretty bloody
kill of
too.
Olivia was,
Yeah, that
I think that's maybe the bloodiest kill we've ever, like, we saw her guts, like, that was
yeah.
gruesome.
Yeah, I'll say like the latter scene, or maybe one of the ghost faces death in Scream 6 comes close to like what
Yeah,
happened to Olivia, but Olivia is still up there as like one of the goriest things that have happened.
absolutely. And, I love that they were really meta in this one as well, where they were bringing in these new characters that were like archetypes of the original characters.
Mhm.
And, you're like, okay, yeah, we have a new Sydney, we have a new Tatum, we have a new, and it's like, nope. Just you wait, just you wait. Even like the Charlie like setup to be sitting like Casey's boyfriend
Oh
was,
yeah.
like, oh, he tricked me. He tricked me, and and it hurt.
It hurt. Yep, I get you. It always makes me sad when I see some people put Scream 4 at the very bottom, because to me, even after Scream 6, Scream 4 is still my favorite. I just think they did such a good job with the commentary, the meta-ness, the characters, the reveal, doing something different after the reveal. It had a lot of what I wanted modern Scream to be.
You guys know what's up. For our first place pick, we had to go with the original Scream. It was the blueprint, and
Yeah.
it holds up so well. Like, I think even looking back at all the other movies, this one still has like the most fleshed out characters out of all of them,
Yeah.
from the final girl to the best friend to, to the killers. Like even though I feel like Stu Macher may not have had like the most screen time, like
Oh.
you really felt that
Oh,
presence of Matthew Lillard. Like he really delivered.
My mom and dad are gonna be
It had the great balance of humor and horror. You got the iconic opening. Like you really set that stage with Maureen Prescott and everything. Like there's a real motive. There's still that like movie focused motive.
oh, yeah.
You just had everything in it.
I agree. Like, as much as I love like some of these different endings, like Scream 4, like the ending to Scream, the first Scream will always just be the one I love. Just seeing the dynamic between Billy and Stu, and the way they're like bouncing off each other. And as wild as Stu might come off sometimes, he's just so hilarious, but so energetic to watch, which is why I think you have still a cult following of fans like me begging that somehow he's alive and out there. And like, there's that throwaway line in Scream 6 where they're like, if you believe he's dead, and I'm like, oh, please let that just be some sort of setup for the future, because I would love to see Matthew Lillard again. But other than that, like, yeah, it was just a perfect horror movie in my opinion. So many things from that opening, subverting your expectations with Drew Barrymore. To this day, that's still like a scary opening. It's like, I want to know who I'm looking at and whatnot. It's a great opening. So yeah, Scream is the blueprint. I doubt we'll ever get a sequel that'll match what Scream was, but I mean, it's always gonna be number one. In 5, there's like when they're showing the dead meat cameo, the internet people, and then off to the sidebar and recommended, there's the Kirby interview that confirms she's alive and she did that. But at the very bottom, there's a video that says, "Is Stu Macher alive? Did the real Stu Macher survive or whatever?" And that was just like a throwaway thing. And then in this movie, they continue to play that up with like Mindy says, if you believe he's dead, he like saying that she thinks that maybe he's out there who's not. And I know we're ranking here, but I feel like that's got to be the thing to draw people in for Scream 7. Like they let so many people survive Scream 6. They're like, that's one of the things that held Scream 6 back a little bit for me, was the amount of people that got stabbed in vicious ways, but still were alive by the end of the movie. It didn't feel like they were like afraid to kill them off. It just felt like, no, we want a lot of people for Scream 7, and then we're going to break your heart there.
From seeing like the 5 and 6 feeling like they really are parallels to 1 and 2,
Yep.
I'm curious if like this third one slash seventh one could maybe tie into some of that Hollywood stuff again.
Yeah.
And maybe the limited series for Gail's book or something.
Yeah.
And bring in that Stu Macher stuff, and maybe, I don't know, the exploitation
awesome.
of Hollywood, and who knows. I want some kind of like Ghostface cult that's like obsessed with Stu Macher and just keeps.
That's would have been fun and whatnot. I think the main thing they got to do in the next one is Sam and Tara's mom. They keep mentioning her,
Mentioning her.
but they don't like show her yet. I've seen people mention Jennifer Lopez or Salma Hayek as the mom, and I'm like, that wouldn't be so bad. But there's such a cool, interesting factor there because she loved Billy Loomis. Like she was like all for him. Sydney killed him. That would make an interesting dynamic. They also went to high school with Sydney, so she would probably know her. I think there's so many cool things. And also the dad of Jenna Ortega's character, because that's not Sam's dad, and he left the picture. But now that he sees his daughter's constantly in danger of almost dying, maybe he steps in and be like, you need to stay away from my daughter because you're getting her in danger or something.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cool. There's just so much that they could do. Like, the story's never really over. Like, there's all this history. And that's what I love. It's kind of like Degrassi, you know, and that's one of those, you know, where there's so much community and there's so much backstory. Like, that draws me in, you know. Chris, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This was so
thank you for having me. This is fun. Like I don't get to collab very often or whatnot, but if it's Scream, I could talk your ear off.
Yes. Now let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me at youtube.com/3cfilms. I'll probably doing a separate ranking where I not only do the movies, I'm going to do the openings, the ghost faces. I think I'm going to add a couple elements this time around. But yeah, you guys can find me there. Also geeking out over Scream 6 and just talking about the good and bad and hopefully what I want to see in Scream 7 if they make one.
Yes. And of course, make sure to let us know your rankings in the comments. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!